Hey, what's up, guys? Mark Conley, founder of Daily Soccer Skills, and today um, I just felt compelled to kind of bring up something that's really been burning hot in my mind recently, and it is the rule of 33%. And where this stems from is, you hear all these, like, quote unquote overnight successes, or, like, these players that just, like, pop onto the radar, like, Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City, or I can think of like a dozen other players who, like, just in the past, like, 6 months to a year, it's like, well, these guys' career are exploding, and you're kind of wondering to yourself, well, like, how does that happen? And so, the reality is that Gabriel Jesus, I mean, he's new to me. I mean, he's new to, like, a lot of people. But in Brazil, he's been a legend for years. In Man City, they've known about him for years. You don't go and spend big money and sign people if you don't have faith in them, if you haven't researched them, if you kind of know what you're doing there. And so I started thinking a lot about, like, this concept of, like, wow, like, one day this player's here, and the next thing he's, like, on this, like, on a hot streak, and he's on this radar. Like, well, how do you kind of, like, connect the gap there? And I started thinking a lot about, like, the rule of 33%. And I mean, there's things like, like we'll keep talking about Gabriel Jesus. I mean, there's some things he's great at. He's great going forward. He's great on the attack. I mean, he's out injured right now. And he scored some big goals, kind of from the beginning. But there's also some weaknesses in his game. And so, as we start to, think about how we become better players, think about the rule of 33% in regards to how you spend your time training. And let's give some specifics. So, let's say let's say you're a winger, and you can run all day long, up and down, ton of endurance, but our agility is not that good, or our quickness is not that good, or our first touch on the ball is not so great, but we can pass the ball and distribute it, pretty decent. So you start to think about things that you're really good at, and then you have your little category of things, like, where you're okay at, and there's things where where the skeleton and the closet are. You want to improve those, whether it's being more physical, whether it's your first touch, whether it's your shooting. I mean, then there's millions of things it could be that you want to improve. And so, my advice would be, is as you try to, like, connect the dots and go from, like, being this one player to, like, the 2.0 version of yourself. You just have to get a little bit better every day, right? And the best way to do that is the rule of 33%. Whereas, if you start out one day and you're like, what, I'm going to spend 33% of my time today training this thing I'm really good at, because I'm ahead of the pack here and I want to stay there, so I'm going to train that. And that's a good thing. The next thing you're going to say, what, I'm not that great of a juggler or whatever it is, but I'm as good as everybody else. And so I'm going to spend some time here so that, maybe I can kind of edge ahead. Maybe, that teammate of mine who's, like, trying to take some playing time from me, or whatever, somebody's maybe starting in front of me. Maybe they're just out shooting on the goal today, and I'm just going to spend a little bit of time working on my first touch or my juggling or whatever it is, so I can get ahead a little bit there. And there's the thing that where you're behind on, and everybody's got it, right? Like, I mean, you've got, like, the goalkeeper is obviously not going to be able to dribble like the forwards. The forward isn't going to be able to communicate and have the the wherewithal of your goalkeeper. So, I mean, everyone's going to have those. And so those things that you're a little bit behind on, spend 33% of your time training on those too. And what you're trying to do is slowly, like, if here's the pack, if you're kind of, like, right here, it's like, okay, well, we get on level with the pack. And now all of a sudden, you're still the same. I mean, if you're on level with your 33%, what you were behind on, now you're on level with the pack. And now you got this other thing that kind of makes you special. And so, I mean, you guys are smart guys. You kind of understand where we're going to go next. Is now, how do we go from here to here? How do we get all those things that were once weaknesses? How have we turned them on a 180 and gotten them to that next level? So now we're ahead. And there's actually there's a player that I used to play with back in the day. He's not with us anymore. He very sadly lost his life about 5-6 years ago. But was a fantastic soccer player. And we all, as youth kids growing up, we all just spent so much time just shooting the ball. We could all strike the ball really, really well. And, one day this dude starts working on his left foot. And it's like, man, he's shanking the ball. It's going everywhere. It's not very good. And so, we're kind of, like, clowning on him a little bit. I mean, granted, I'm 10 or 11 years old at this point. And he keeps after it. He keeps after it. He keeps after it. And after about 6 months, I'm like, well, man, that guy can hit the ball a little bit. He's chipping the ball. It's pretty versatile now. And after about a year, the left foot was every bit as good as his right foot, and he was a step above us. But he invested that time in doing it, and it was awkward at first. It wasn't like pretty. It wasn't clean. It wasn't like you would expect like a good soccer player to be able to use both feet. It didn't look like that. It looked like a kid that had an expert right foot and then a reckless left foot, and that's okay. I mean, that's where you start. But after 6 months, it was like, okay, there he is. And after a year, it's like, whoa, the left is good as the right. So just kind of like keep that in mind and understand that it's not an overnight thing. We talk about Gabriel Jesus and how he's kind of like burst on the scene even though he's out injured now. Like that wasn't an overnight thing. I mean, that's been coming for years for that guy. Day in, day out, training on his weaknesses, keeping his strengths ahead of schedule, and then he got his chance. He got his breakthrough, and unfortunately, obviously, he's out injured on the moment. But that's something that you could have for yourself. It just takes a little bit of a commitment, a little bit of a plan. Just kind of sit down, a little pad and paper, and say, it's pretty simple, right? You've got good. I'm good. I'm great at this. I'm okay to good in this area, and I need to improve in these things. And just make a list, and it doesn't. I mean, you could go on for days, right? You could have like 50 things in each one. I mean, just try to make 4 or 5 in each one, and then just start knocking them off. And what you'll find is that as you go about your business, as you start knocking them off, you're going to uncover other things that you can improve. You're going to uncover things that you didn't even know you were good at that now you're really good at. And so just kind of like just map it out a little bit and have an idea, a little bit of a strategy, and then just start getting after it. 15, 20 minutes a day, just knocking it out. And what you'll see is, from like say Monday to Friday, you're not going to be like blown away. Like this was like, whoa, that was amazing. Like an extra hour and a half of training, and I'm like, I'm ready for Manchester City. It doesn't work that way. But what you'll find is that if you look at it from like month 1, and then look at it at 3 months, look at it at 6 months, and look at it a year, you're going to be like, I'm a different player. And so that would be a good thing. All right, guys, enough talking. Let's get out there and train.